if the deal were to happen, it would be a blockbuster for the industry.
Yeah, in fact, it would be a history-making deal, the largest ever for the drug and healthcare industry. Now, AstraZeneca is the UK's biggest drug maker and is valued at $140 billion. It is also one of the co-developers of a promising vaccine for the coronavirus. Meanwhile, Gilead, its U.S. rival, is valued at $96 billion as of Friday. So the combination of these two companies would be almost $240 billion. We should also point out Gilead is the maker of the only U.S.-approved treatment, remdesivir, for the coronavirus. Now, Bloomberg News has learned AstraZeneca made a preliminary and informal approach to Gilead about a potential merger a month ago.
The bail for Derek Chauvin, the white Minneapolis police officer accused of murdering African-American George Floyd 2 weeks ago, has been raised by $250,000 to $1.25 million on Monday. Chauvin made his first court appearance on Monday remotely via closed-circuit television, wearing an orange jumpsuit and a face mask. He is accused of second-degree murder in the May 25th death of Floyd in Minneapolis by kneeling on Floyd's neck for nearly 9 minutes. He has since been fired from the force. Minnesota Assistant Attorney General Matthew Frank argued that the severity of the charges, as well as the strength of public opinion, made it more likely that Chauvin would flee if set free, Minnesota's Star Tribune reported.
There were quite a lot of messages that I received overnight and that we received about making some clarifications to some points that I made yesterday at the press conference. So I think it's important just to if I can briefly cover perhaps some of the misunderstandings from what I said yesterday. So I think what's important related to transmission is what we know, importantly what we don't know, and what we're trying to do to really understand this very complex question. There are some estimates that suggest that anywhere between 6% of the population and 41% of the population may be infected but not have symptoms, with a point estimate of around 16%. I don't want to get too technical, but that we do know that some people who are asymptomatic or some people who don't have symptoms can transmit the virus on. And so what I was referring to yesterday in the press conference were a very few studies, some 2 or 3 studies that have been published that actually try to follow asymptomatic cases, so people who are infected over time, and then look at all of their contacts and see how many additional people were infected. And that's a very small subset of studies. And in that, I use the phrase very rare. And I think that that's misunderstanding to state that asymptomatic transmission globally is very rare. What I was referring to was a subset of studies.
Latest headlines for you from BBC News. The brother of George Floyd, whose death in police custody in Minneapolis has ignited anti-racism protests around the world, has called for meaningful change in American policing. Philonise Floyd told a congressional hearing his brother's death did not have to be in vain. Democrats have introduced legislation on police reform to Congress. Authorities in Delhi are warning that coronavirus infections in the Indian capital could shoot up to more than 500,000 by the end of July. They say the city will need 80,000 hospital beds by then. Delhi's current capacity is just 9,000. Russian investigators have detained 3 managers of the Norilsk power plant in Siberia on suspicion of breaching environmental protection regulations. 20,000 tons of diesel have spilled into local rivers and a lake. It's the worst accident of its kind, it's thought, in post-Soviet Russia.
This is AP News Minute. Arizona is emerging as a coronavirus hotspot, with some hospital intensive care units now near capacity. The state is seeing more than 1,000 new cases a day, up from 400 when stay-at-home orders ended. Yosemite National Park in California is set to open to a limited number of visitors on Thursday. Concerns about the coronavirus shut down the park 2.5 months ago. Media executive John Ossoff won Georgia's Senate Democratic primary. He'll face Republican Senator David Perdue in November. Protesters in Richmond, Virginia, toppled a statue of Confederate President Jefferson Davis. One day earlier, a statue of Christopher Columbus was brought down in the same city. Tim McGuire, The Associated Press, with AP News Minute.
This is BBC News, the headlines. America's top general says accompanying the president to a church and appearing in a photo op near the White House was a mistake. Mark Milley, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, said the event created a perception of the military being involved in domestic politics. US stock markets have fallen sharply as investors became less optimistic about the impact of the coronavirus pandemic on the American economy. The Dow Jones index closed down by almost 7%. Losses in other indices were almost as big. Stocks suffered their worst day since March. Another of Europe's biggest football leagues, Spain's La Liga, has restarted 3 months after being suspended because of coronavirus. Matches are being played behind closed doors, but TV viewers can watch it with computer-generated spectators.